Hello everyone and welcome to Universal Woo Woo. I'm Joanne Bennett.
And I'm Roger Baines. And this is the show where we discuss how situations and things affect your life, your world, and your universe.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Universal Woo Woo. I'm Joanne.
And I'm Roger. And first of all, before I start, I want to thank everyone that's joined the Universal Woo Woo community. And welcome. Now, remember to share, like, and subscribe. And
hit that bell button so that you know every time that we post a new show.
Yeah, so today we have a very interesting subject. What are we going to talk about today?
So today's juicy subject is one that, I think is really a question lots of people ask. Lots of people don't even know that it exists. But it is, what is a higher self? What is your higher self? When people say, oh, it's your higher self or speak to your higher self. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. In depth of what is a higher self and all that stuff. How to become connected with it. What it's for, everything. We're going to cover it all. So stay right where you are.
Yeah. But before that, we've just begun our services, spiritual coaching, healing, subconscious work, anything that you need, even physical healing. You can contact us. We'll be more than happy to work with you. We have our website. It's going to be linked down below, ontologywellness.com. And with that said, let's get started. Would you say, what is a higher self? Right?
So let's ask you the question. What is a higher self?
Yeah,
Have I got one?
Everyone has a higher self. Now, this is a very good question because generally, not you, maybe not you because you're watching us, but generally, many of us are really far removed from that side of who we are. The higher self, to put it simply, is you in the realm of infinity. Now that sounds a little far off, but I like to tell a story. We're of how we exist. Many of you probably know how we exist in many dimensions, and you hear the term we're multi-dimensional beings living here in existence. But I've not heard too many people break that down and really, in essence, talk about what it is that they're talking about when they say we're multidimensional beings living. It's just something people say, and we need to be held in close scrutiny when we say that, because otherwise it's just a bunch of words being strung together that mean nothing. Mm-hmm. Right? So originally we're spirits, right? We are mainly spirits. There are only three things that make us physical: this body, your emotions, and the mind, the psychological mind, the psychological part of mind, right? And so other than that, you take those three things away, we're spirit, okay? And in the form of our ultimate spirit, the higher self, because we also exist in different layers, different dimensions. So just to start off, it's not higher as in greater or hierarchy, pointing the finger down, boss, employee, that kind of stuff that we're used to here on earth. It's higher as in where you exist in the different forms of literally existence. So your fifth dimensional self is a higher self. It's because we're living in the third density, fourth dimension. Then the next level up of you lives in the fourth density, fifth dimension, fifth density, sixth dimension, and so on and so on and so on. Each of those aspects of you is a higher self per se. And so you have many. So we might want to speak, if we have a conversation that we need to have with ourselves. Important to talk to yourself. Or if we want to inquire, we simply need to be able to speak. If it's a question that's most relative and relevant to the sixth dimensional aspect of you, that's who comes in and speaks to you about those things. And ultimately, all of you have the ultimate highest of selves living, highest in that aspect of you lives in outside of all space and time. That aspect of you knows everything, is everywhere. It's omnipotent, omnipowerful, all those omni words you could think of. And usually when we say that, we want to say that about a god. Well, all of the gods and all of the so-called ascended masters and all the so-called angels that I hear many people out there give their power to and consult and worship are simply an imitation of those aspects of yourself.
We are gods.
We are the gods. And so there's a jealousy factor that goes on, and anything that tries to pull us in and put us below them, because if you notice, all of these aspects, all of these things, these gods, these so-called ascended masters, by the way, they do exist, but the few that do exist will not interfere in your daily life, because that is the realm of your spirit and yourself and all of the different levels of existence. Anything coming in from the outside, they are simply trying to replace those aspects of you. So now here's the kicker. Your question might be, well, why is it that the people do angels and do all those things and all of that and not consult on yourself? And the simple answer to that is that we've forgotten. We've forgotten who we are. We have. And so it's an opening for beings who have cut themselves off from universal source, creator, and the universal mother, because there's two. And the creator is the universal mother. This planet is female. This universe is female. But she doesn't force anybody to worship her. She's not interested in that, because we're all aspects of her. Why does she need to worship herself or get herself in a smaller form, or us to you know, the little fractals to be worshiping her?
We'll do a show about that.
We'll do a show about that.
We've got one coming out about why we're here, and we talk about all that kind of stuff, like fractals and, you know, it's really interesting. So we'll do a show about that. Yeah, we'll do, because I'm trying. This subject can go all kinds of ways, so I'm trying to reel it in. So, in short, your higher self, or your highest self, because again, you have many aspects of yourself that live in the higher, less dense, and I want to really specify higher again. What that means higher is in less dense. In other words, when you're in the 5th, 6th, 7th dimension, the body that you have isn't as dense or solid. And so the higher you go, the less dense it becomes, and the more non-physical it becomes. So that's really what the higher refers to. Higher dimension, higher density. That's what the higher refers to. There's no hierarchy. But I've heard people say that, you know, I've heard people talk about 5D this, 5D that. And I always question, well, why are you ending it at 5? Why ain't it 365D? You know? So for me, that kind of made me question, what is it? You know? So when you say that, is that what we're talking about? We're in essence talking about that, and that's a very good question. This is diverting a little bit from it, but since you bring it up, it's really important, because many of you might be thinking, if you bring it up, it means many other people are thinking the same. There's this agenda, because let me tell you a little bit about the 5th dimension. A lot of the really, really, really seediest and most dastardly beings lived there. And so that's as high as they could get. And so when they're there, they have access to everything below, in the dimensions below them. So they have seen, or had seen,
that humanity was evolving, and that if humanity evolved too much, they would evolve past that fifth dimension. And if that happened, then there's no feeding or access to those who will have forgotten down in the third and fourth. Not only that, those who are remembering, because awakening is kind of a word that's used, but remembering is actually more accurate. Those who are remembering who they are and connecting to themselves in the different levels of existence would then remind all of those who haven't, just by the example that they would set, and all of a sudden the collective would change and it would evolve past them. So before that, the agenda was to, well, we'll make it seem, we'll create, we'll find ours down there that are forgotten, and we'll be the ones that guide those who tell everyone else that the next level to reach is the fifth dimension. And they did this through what I call the New Age movement. The New Age movement. The movement of channelers. The movement of people who are only wrapped up into 5D. They're caught up in this angels and ascended masters things. They've taken bits and pieces from Christianity, bits and pieces from Eastern doctrines and religions, bits and pieces from all different places, mushed it all together and created this movement. Now, it was attractive because if you're coming from, say, the angry God who was going to rain hellfire and brimstone on you, and who you must always fear, and we got sick and tired of that. Many of us, some of us are still in that, they'll figure it out in due time. And those who, it was a lot nicer and kinder to go into, oh, Archangel Michael, he'll take care of you. Oh, there's no hell. Oh, there's no, and then you'll evolve, and you will take you to 5D. They'll lead you to 5D. You need protection, Archangel Michael. You need healing, Archangel whoever. You need that. So you're still dependent. So yeah, you left the angry God or the angry gods or this and that and the hellfire and brimstone guy. But then you ran into those guys and they're doing the same thing, just a little bit kinder and gentler. But I've seen channelers, and those who can see with this eyes, the majority of those channelers, when you look on their energy field, it's riddled with holes. They can't defend themselves because you've got Archangel Michael and then you've got the good cop, bad cop going. He's the good cop and he's got his buddy, the bad cop, over here. And he's going to save you from the bad cop. But you know what? When he gets his cut of your energy, he's giving it over to the bad cop. And all the while you're feeding, you need protection and you need this and all that. And you're calling on all these beings that are completely outside of you. That's how you know. If you are looking outside of yourself, then that's a red flag. So it is all of these beings who came up with this 5-dimensional 5D BS. Oh, you're going to 5D? That's the next D. No. There are some of us who came from dimensions not even known, 12D and up, to come down here and assist humanity. You think that we're going to come down here
and only have 5
and then get demoted to 5D? I don't think so. Some of you have come from places higher than that. You're not just in 5D. So when people talk, I talk to people, I talk to maybe about 5D, I go, why have you restricted it to 5D? And I could hear a little bell go off in their head. I go, I'm not telling you where you can go or where you should go, but I have not restricted myself to 5D. I'm in 1D, 2D, 3D, 4D.
All the Ds.
All the Ds. And I'm not interested in leaving any of them.
Yeah.
As co-creator of all of them, like many of you, I'm not interested in leaving any of them. Because you can't call yourself a multi-dimensional being living in all realities and all these nice flowery names, but you're trying to escape from something. escaping from the Matrix. That's another thing we'll do.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
not going to get into that.
show.
That's another show. What are you escaping from? Where are you running to? You know, it's in your head. You're going to escape your own head.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll talk about that too. That's going to be another interesting show. So for that, I think, is there anything else? I think
you've explained. Back to higher self.
Back to higher self.
Why do we have a higher self?
Now, that's another good question. Why do we have another higher self? By the way, we do have a list, because this is one where we want to make sure we cover everything.
Yeah.
But because we try to make it as natural as possible, we don't rehearse it.
No,
we haven't rehearsed this one.
Can you tell?
What was that one? Why we need a higher self?
Yeah.
It's almost the same as saying, why do we need a brain? Because here's the thing. It's like this. It isn't until recent times that most of us know what a brain even looks like. And so think of it this way. I'm going to do two parts. Like your heart beats, you have parts in your bodies, all the organs and everything. You're not even aware of them. But what if they were taken? What if you might not even be thinking about your heart right now until I mentioned it? But what if something just ripped it out and got rid of it? What would happen to you? So that's kind of how our higher selves function. It's a crude way of putting it, but it gets the point across, you know? So what it is, your higher self is simply, like I said, it's you. It's like, why do you need you? At the ultimate level, you all began from the level of infinity, where you never perish and you know everything and you are everything. There is a problem with that scenario. Believe it or not. The problem, boredom. Exactly. If you have everything and you know everything and you are everything, blah, 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 where do you go from there? How do you learn when you know everything? How do you grow when you're as big as anything can get? You have to restrict yourself in order to expand yourself. It's the only way. So you create, and I say you because I'm talking about the you up there. And you might say, you might not be, if it's something, connection to yourself is something that you've had issues with, then you can only conceptualize this from the level of the conscious mind where the ego dwells. So just imagine that you had this situation. How would you enjoy existence? You would create matrices or existences where you didn't have that, where you were limited. Your existence in those realities they had an expiration date. All of a sudden, if you're in the land of eternity and you had to go down the street, just pretending, to get a loaf of bread, it might take you 10 billion years to do it because you got all the time in the world. But if you only live to 100 years and you got to go down the street and you got to eat, if you don't, then suddenly there's this urgency thing about everything that kicks in.
Yeah.
And then what does that do? That makes things interesting, right? Because you got to do something. You might have a challenge that you set up for yourself, but you got to get it done.
Or an experience.
Or an experience that you set up for yourself. You got to get... Now we're talking making things interesting from that perspective. So that's the baseline of the story, right? Now, why do you need a higher self? So how do I put myself in a situation where I don't succumb to boredom? I put myself in a limited situation. How do I do that? I take a piece of myself. A good way to think of it is, say, a gemstone, right? A gemstone, precious stones. If you break a precious stone, every little piece of that stone has exactly all the aspects of the original stone. Every piece of it. That's why it's called a fractal. So it might not be as big or as in size or greatness of the original one, but everything that's in that original one is in that small little shard. So that's what your higher self has done. Your highest self, your spirit, has taken a piece of itself and put it into the reality, and has done so in many, 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 many places. Because it's more, that's why you're multidimensional. That's why you exist in all these different places. We're all shards or fractals of that one great spirit. And ultimately, the Divine Mother is the ultimate gemstone or crystal, because your spirit is a fractal of the Divine Mother. And you can see how it goes on and forth until it comes to us. And we're at the level where it's the limit of where we can exist and be in that way. So that's why you need your higher self, because you are a piece of it. You can't have one without the other. So you exist because of your higher self. And down to the lowest level, one of the things that's an indicator of that is the breath. It is the breath that ties spirit, body, and soul together. And we know this because it's even in the language. So even though we've forgotten, there are always little reminders, because we have a respiratory system. I'll say it slowly. Respirit. The word spirit is in respiratory. It's in there. That's the thing that ties us together. And the actual way to put it is actually prana. Prana, the Sanskrit word prana, because breath and prana are not one and the same. We put them the same because there's not an English word for prana. Prana is simply the source of life, and there are many dimensions to prana. But that part of us, that's why we need our higher self, because it is the creator of everything. Now, if you go to religion, every god, everything, their biggest thing that they must get you to do is they must get you to believe that they're your creator. Because
you are.
Yeah, you are from the highest part, because not everything in existence, everything in existence or every life form does have a higher self per se. But those who have cut themselves off from the Divine Mother, from their divine selves, they need the life and the sustenance, because they've decided they've cut themselves off, and even they have forgotten. So they need to get that source in a roundabout way by plugging into you. But they need your permission, because every single one of them, you have to choose those systems. They'll come and they'll propose and they'll do the song and dance, and they'll even try to bring fear into, if you don't follow this God, my God, then your life is going to be terrible. What happens after you die? All these things. That's why we have a fear of death. It's because of that we have a fear of death. So those outside forces that want your energy are simply an imitation of your divine self at the highest level, because you are God. And that's what it means when I say you're God. We're not talking about this flesh. We're talking about you at the ultimate and highest form of existence. That's the part of you that's God, which makes you God, because you're a little piece of it down here, right? Yeah. So does that
there's nothing out there that's bigger than what's in here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll get to that too, as to why. Because we hear that a lot, but it doesn't ring true, because it's just, again, if you just say words and you don't point to where people can go see for themselves, then it's just words. Hey, let's look at the sequence. What do you think?
Okay, so we kind of said, where is your higher self?
Yeah. See, that's on the list here.
And I think another one was, how do we connect?
Yes.
To our higher self?
I think in this subject, this is the most important part, the connection. Because ultimately, everything that exists, no matter what it does, no matter what, it's one objective. This is from my experience, is to disconnect you from your spirit or to keep you disconnected. The voices in your head, all the things in life, you know, you live your life. You go to you're born, you're in a family, you get taught all these things. You're taught to look outside of yourself. Something outside of you teaches you. You need to worship something outside of you so that you can be saved from something. You need this job, you need this career, this education so that you can survive and become someone.
And listen to other people.
Yeah.
Never yourself.
Never yourself.
It's been conditioned since birth, like.
Yeah, it's been conditioned. Everything conditions you away from yourself.
Everything.
Everything. Including the noise that occurs. So ultimately, we have forgotten, and so for some of this is going on lifetime after lifetime after lifetime after lifetime with one program after another program after another program. So with all of this forgetting and all of this disconnection, for most of us to connect to our spirit, it requires a plan. It requires dedication, because it isn't your spirit that's disconnected from you. It has never gone anywhere. It's always there. It's always sending you signs.
But you don't listen.
But we don't listen. Always. Because I like to look at it this way. Before you came into any existence, you had a talk with yourself, a loving conversation. And I imagine that your spirit is, because it's a risk sending a fractal down here, because the fractal has to have a choice. You can choose not to connect to your spirit, and it's completely your right.
Free will.
You have to do it through free will. And you might get caught up with things that are designed to keep you cut off from your spirit, keep you forgetting. And so the determination and how important that is will determine your connection. Because between you and your spirit, if you're not connected, it's like a void. And in that void, it's like a void. And your spirit is not a screamer, it's not a yeller. And so there's a lot of noise, particularly in some people's heads. There's some of us who cannot sit in silence because of that noise. Because of that noise. And your spirit's voice, you will never hear a spirit with that kind of mind. With that kind of mind. So to connect to your spirit, or connect to yourself, because I want to make to connect to yourself, there's several things you gotta do. You gotta sit down. If you can't sit in silence, that's actually what you need to do. But if you can't, then there are several things you can do. You can just be so determined, go out in nature, and even if that noise is there, you keep doing it. And if you're determined enough, it'll start clearing that stuff up. But that's doing it the hard way. But it's still possible. It's still possible. I know one of the services that we do at Ontology is just that. It's clearing away the things in the mind. Because the problem occurs in the mind. That's where it occurs. That's where all of the hijacking occurs. Because you have, as the law of correspondence says, as above, so below. So below, as above. As within, so without. And then I like to add, as my one of my great teachers taught me, and everything else in between. The in-between area is the mind, and that's where the corruption occurs, that's where the forgetting occurs, that's where the usurping occurs, the hijacking, and all of it. So that's where you have to go first, the mind. And if you find that it's something that is too difficult for you to do, you can use the fast forward button or the easy button. It's something that we do here at Ontology Wellness. That's the name of the practice. I know the name of the show is Universal Woo Woo, but the healing side of it is Ontology Wellness. We go into the mind and start clearing out that stuff, and then we work with you, because it's actually you that has to do the work, and then we work together, and you get little assignments and things that you do and practices until you clear that stuff out. And then your mind becomes peaceful. And when your mind becomes peaceful and the noise has been removed, then you hear the gentle, loving voice of your spirit. Of your spirit. But if you are to do this yourself, and you can, you absolutely can, is meditation is one way to do it. Like I said, going out into nature is another way to do it. Talking to yourself.
That's another show.
That's another show, but I'm going to hit on it because talking to yourself is like you're talking to your friend. And we have demonized that in this culture. Oh, don't talk to yourself. Oh, by the way, yeah, you can talk to yourself, but as soon as you start answering yourself, that's when you're crazy. Guess what? That's the key.
Yeah. Or the
the key.
The first sign of madness.
Yeah.
Is when you talk to yourself. That was what I was told as a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a deception. That is one of the programs put in place to stop you from connecting with yourself. You need to have elaborate conversations with yourself as loudly as I'm speaking right now, even.
And he does,
by
the way.
And sometimes he catches me. But I've been caught so many times. Who are you talking to? I'm talking to myself.
I don't say that anymore because I'm used to it. But
yeah.
I was like, who's he talking to?
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny. And I'll tell you a little story. I've always talked to myself. And even when I was in the state of forgetting, I would talk to myself. And I would always hear the voice go, oftentimes you need to do it your way, or otherwise it's not going to turn out the way you like it. And I would do it sometimes and it would be just right. But then I would go back to listening to other people and living in misery as a result of it. Until I started to remember, and the voice is still there, and I thought it was me, and it is kind of me, but I didn't think of it as sort of my higher self. And then one day, when I fully remembered, or many say woke up to the reality, it was the same voice that was there when let's just say when I was asleep. And then a bell went off in my head, and I realized it was my spirit all along. Even though I never ever acknowledged my spirit at all, and I was caught up in religions. That's why I could tell you about New Age and all of that. I was caught up in religions, all of them. Christianity, all kinds of stuff. All kinds of stuff. Cults. Yeah. That voice never left. I say he, but your spirit is not confined to that. But let's just say he was never ever drowned out by any of it. Because it's a very powerful spirit. And I was always kind of aware of the spiritual side, even though I was misled and sort of wherever I was. But I even look at that and say those lessons are valuable for me now. Because I can talk to somebody who's been born again and that stuff. I can talk to somebody who's been caught up in a cult.
Because you got experience.
I know how to help them.
Yeah.
Because I have experience in all of it. That voice never left, and I realized, oh my God, you've always been there. That's always been you. And he goes, yep, I never left, even though you forgot. Because that part of yourself does not hold any grudges. Doesn't hold any grudges against you. And many of us, when we bend our knees and we pray and we get the things that we need, and we think it's coming from something else, it's your spirit that's doing that. It's your ancestors as well, because they're all a part of it. The bloodline that you come from, they don't hold any grudges against you. But even though you then turn around and give the credit to something else, they still help you. Because sooner or later, you're going to have to get it.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
So how do you know? Well, we've talked about this before. How do you know if it's your higher self speaking? Because it's like thoughts. It comes in like thoughts. Or if it's you, or some might say your ego. See, this is a personal experience for me. I know it's my higher self because of what side I'm hearing it from. It's not like being clairvoyant or whatever, where you hear a voice from outside. No, this is a voice from inside, and mine comes from the right side of the brain and that's where that thought comes from.
From your creative side.
Yeah, from my creative side, and it's very much a different kind of voice. It's still me. It's still my voice. It's still my thought, but it's a slower, calmer. So listen, next time you think of something, like an idea, for instance, something creative, see if you can notice the difference in that thought from, say, for instance, what side it's coming from. Because it's not the side that's like, oh, I've got to worry, I'm going to be late for work, I've got to worry about paying the gas bill, I've got to do this, blah, 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 blah. It's not that. That's a different kind of vibe and a different sound, because it's almost like desperation kind of. But the higher self is very calm and talks to you very slow, not really slow, but it's totally different.
Gentle is the word. Gentle, calm, and loving. That's your higher self. If it's any other kind of energy, that's not your higher self, and you should be questioning what that energy is, because maybe it's something you got to get rid of. You know. But that's gentle, calm, and loving. That's your spirit's voice. So you can see, if you've got all kinds of noise going on in your head or in your environment, how something that's gentle, calm, and loving can be drowned out. Because you see, your spirit is not going to succumb to any of the nonsense going on this planet or in your head. It's your job, it's our job to clear that part of it up. See, we have a responsibility. Our spirit's responsibility is to always be there. Always there, always speaking, always sending us the right thoughts, always manifesting in the right people to tell us. And then it's our job to listen, and it's our job to clear up the physical side of ourselves, particularly the psychological side, and make the connection. You don't have to be an expert on the subconscious, trust me. But you have to have the desire. It has to be literally at the top of your priorities. I'm sorry, if it's not going to happen. If connection to your spirit is not the number one thing in your priority, not going to happen. Because that's the source of all creation. If that isn't a priority, number one, then it's not going to happen. I'm not going to BS. It needs to be the number one priority. And anything that gets in the way, and let me tell you, when you're in the journey of connecting to your spirit, because you know it's not quite where you want it to be, and you could be connected, but the it's not expanded enough. Sometimes you hear your spirit really well, and sometimes the cloudiness is there. That means there's more work to be done. Clear it up. And number one, as you're connecting your spirit, you let your spirit know that that's what you want. That's your biggest connect. That's the thing that you need. And then be on the lookout for the things that come your way to make that happen. Because once your spirit can just come in and talk to you like a friend, because then what you want is that's why you need to talk to yourself like you talk to a friend. It's a friendship. It's not a worship thing. It's not a this. It's literally, we do it bad, don't we? Oh man, where's you can't find something.
Oh yeah.
Where could you help me find this? Whether it's, whoever is the best suited to do this, could you help me find this? I can't find the spoon I'm looking for. It's my favorite spoon.
Screwdriver,
could you help me? Because I really need it. And it'll show up. Because what? you have a relationship with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You don't just go talk to your spirit when you're in trouble. You know that, friend.
Like the other day, I was looking for the balsamic vinegar. I bought balsamic vinegar glaze for avocado toast, and I knew that it was in the car, and then it's been in the car since before Christmas. But it had rolled under the seat, and I never got it out. I just didn't.
And we wanted that glaze real bad.
So I was making it the other day, and I'm like, oh, I bought it in here because I remembered I saw it under the seat, and I put it in one of the shopping bags, and I bought it in here, and I put it away. So I had the cupboards out, looking for it everywhere, and in the back of my mind, I'm like, look in the car. So I went in the car, moved like one thing, came back in, and I said, it's not in the car, it's got to be in here. Looking again in all the cupboards, right at the back, no, it's not. All the while, look in the car, look in the car, look in the car. So I'm arguing with my, it's not in the car, I bought it in. I know I did. It's in the shopping bag.
She's talking to herself now, by the way.
I'm talking to myself. And then in my head, look in the car. Went out into the car, moved one more thing, and it's right there. So I came in, and I'm like, I wish you'd pay attention. But I made up this whole scenario of putting it in a shopping bag and bringing it in the house. I didn't. It was still in the car. But because I asked for help. Sometimes I do light language, it just comes out, and I ask for help to help me find it. And that's what happened all along. It was look in the car.
So even the most, you think, oh, I'll just ask for the big things, even the little things, because that's you. And that just makes it, because that makes it just much more natural. It's not like, oh my God, it makes it much more, it makes it more about what life is really
and building
really
the relationship, not just when you're desperate. Like, again, the whole God thing that people pray to God when someone's ill or something. You know, it's the same thing with your higher self. You have to build that relationship.
Yeah, and that's our job to do, because it's always there.
Yeah,
and there's a rule, because this is a code of ethics. Not even you at that level will interfere with you. It won't.
Yeah. Unless
there's an emergency, something happens. You hear the stories. Something happened. A person was about to get hit by a car, and they even have like footage. And all of a sudden they disappear, and then they end up on the other side of the street. And they go, "What?" That's your spirit coming in to do that. That, by the way, to do something like that, you don't know how much energy it takes for a spirit to do that. For a higher self to do that. But anyway, it's that's the way it works. And you, every day, I talk to myself. We talk to ourselves when we're just sitting around, and we just doing that. And so it's not about, it's just like if you're living with somebody, you just ain't gonna say something. You're just not gonna talk to them when
you're desperate,
or
you're lonely,
and all the other times. It's like you don't even see them. You walk, you look at them, you walk right by them, and go to your, your roommates. Your roommates, right? Because literally, you or your spirit, you're your roommates. And when you walk in the house, you see your roommate there, they're having a sandwich. You don't say a thing. You just walk right by them and go into your room.
Rude.
And then when you're about to come and have your sandwich, you're sitting there watching TV. You walk in front of the TV. You do whatever you want. It's like they don't even exist. That's what we are doing. But then when something happens, hey, ring, ring, ring. I locked myself out. Can you open the door for me? How do you think that roommate's going to feel about doing something for you when you don't even know they exist?
So how about coming in and saying, sup, what sandwich you eating? It's
like that.
Building a relationship.
It's like that. And it's not like your spirit doesn't hold a grudge against you. But the thing that happens, the dynamics, is when you don't create a relationship with your spirit, it opens the door for other things to come in and clog up the waterways. That's what's happening. And so when you need something and that's your ego now coming in and trying to put your spirit below it. That your spirit will never, ever, ever ever put itself below your ego. Thank goodness, because it would be the destruction of everything if that happened. So that's why it's important to build that relationship. Again, because we've been talking about a whole lot of things, kind of like bringing it home with stories and anecdotes and examples. But first of all, it must be the biggest priority in your life to be connected to your own spirit. That's number one. Number two, find moments of silence so that you can hear your spirit. And number three, because we don't like to make things too complex and all cosmic and stuff. Meditation. If you're doing meditation, that's a great way to do it. But if you have trouble meditating, talk to yourself.
And like, I know people are going to say, oh, they have trouble, because I did when I first switching off their mind. But even if you just sit, even if you sit for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, build it up, 3 minutes, and you can't switch off your mind, just turn off your phone, turn off everything, TV, whatever, computer, and just actually practice sitting with your own self is progress, even if it's not for long. 5 minutes. Even if it's
like a minute, really.
Yeah.
You're trying. You're putting forth an effort. Because I learned this the other day from a psychologist, and she said a lot of times we want to do something and we're waiting for the motivation or the thing to come. Most of the time, that's not what does it. It's actually stepping in the direction that triggers a lot of things.
Yeah.
So even if your mind is such that you can only muster 1 minute, do that and build it up and take that time to ask your spirit for the help you need. And something will come by. Just pay attention.
Yeah.
Just pay attention. And don't put any judgments as to how that answer can come. Because it might come from a very unlikely source. You just need an answer. Don't be judging about how it comes. You just need an answer. And then there's help you can get. I don't know many people that work on connection to spirit. Even the so-called, I don't hear that a lot. When I work with with anyone, it's automatically one of the first things that I do. I ask certain questions, and I know when people connect to spirit because of how they answer. You have a conversation. It's one of the first things I do automatically as a part of any kind of healing or any kind of work that we're doing, because I know that's where the answer's at. In them. In them. And in them completely. Not just in here, but in them at the highest levels. And I try to clear that. My attempt is to clear that up. And then so they can start really hearing themselves. And that's when life changes on a dime. Changes on a dime. So let's see, did we cover everything? Because we didn't want to skip anything.
No.
I know this is a long video.
It is. We was going to do a 2-parter, but we've no, let's just do this whole thing. Mind chatter.
Yeah,
which we're kind of.
Oh, we kind of touched on it a little bit.
Yeah.
And I know this is long, but this is one of those subjects you really just can't do in 5, 10, 15 minutes. And it's really important. And the person that's listening to this that really needs it, it'll ring a bell, and you won't worry about time. Because what else are you going to do with your time? The most important thing you can do with your time is work on the self. Yourself, not other people, not the kids, yourself. Because the better you are, the better you'll be for everything around you. Everything. And that's an example, if you have children, to show your children. Because don't you want them to be the best they can be? Working on the self. There's no greater occupation. None. Let's see. What we say? Mind chatter. Mind chatter is one of those is one of those things that's chronic. And again, you shouldn't listen to everything that comes out of your mind. That's the first thing. The second thing is, with the mind chatter, is you want to observe what's coming out of the mind chatter, and if it's negative and not true, you need to question your mind, challenge it, and see, when it comes to mind chatter, when it comes to anxiety, emotional issues, mental issues, it is simply this. your mind, this comes from a friend of mine, don't know him personally, but if you do what he does, anybody does what he does, he's a friend of mine. And he says, all of these things, anxiety, mind chatter, emotional upheaval and suffering, is a result of one thing. Your body and your mind and your emotions are not taking instructions from you. They're not taking instructions from you. It's the other way around. And for whatever reasons that's happening, you've got to begin to address that and start speaking to your mind, because they're part of yourself too. Have a talk with your emotions. Have a talk with your body. There's even a technique called body talk. What's the thing?
The inner smile.
Inner smile. What's the thing when you there's a practice, kinesiology.
Oh yeah.
Where you actually talk to your body. There's they can be, you speak to them. Ask them what's going on. They'll tell you. Your mind will tell you. Well, you need to take care of this because this is why I'm this way. And you need to just go. That's one of the most important things people do. How do I do inner work? Talk to yourself. The first thing you want to do is see what comes out. And she has this thing on her wall. Decide what about me is sense or sensible, and what about me is nonsense.
Yeah, how much of me is sense and how much of me is nonsense. From Sadhguru. That's
exactly.
His quote. Yeah.
And so this is an exercise you could do. Just jot a piece of paper when your mind sends you something negative and you know it's not true. Send it back. It says, I only need things that are going to build me up. So you're not being. You're being. I want things that are going to build me up and bring me to the next level and make my life better.
But it's training your mind, though.
Yeah, but it takes time.
Yeah, because we're so used to believing that part of us that's negative about ourselves or whatever comes in negative. We're so used to believing it, we're not questioning it. So that's what he's saying. He's like, question. If something comes in, you kind of feel a bit, oh, why have I thought that? Question it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Your mind.
It's okay to question yourself.
Yeah, because your mind is gone unchecked. It's like a 2-year-old running around, raving havoc all over the place in your head. So you have to check it, and this is not an overnight thing. And question it, and then give it a job. Send it back and say, this is not the type of information I'm interested in. As much as you need to. And it might bring something negative and true. In that case, then you thank the mind, because you don't always want to be the chastiser or denying your mind. Only when it's needed. But you praise and give gratitude to your mind when it brings something positive or even something negative that's true. And then you start working with it. What do I need to do to take care of this issue? What do I need to do to address it? And suddenly the answers will come. And they might come from somebody who comes and talks to you, and suddenly they don't even know you asked it, but they're giving you answers. Again, don't judge how the answers come. Just be patiently waiting. And when you reward your mind like that, eventually it'll start working with you and working for you like it's supposed to. When you do that to your emotions, they'll begin. You do consistently. They'll begin to start working with you and for you. Same thing with the body. But you have to be listening, because you're like the CEO of this whole operation. And when you get things, you need to listen. Because if you ignore what is being brought to you by your mind, your emotions, or your body, they will turn against you. That's why we have all these mental health issues, emotional issues, body issues, because we have been ignoring these aspects of ourselves, and they have turned against us. And the only way to reverse that is to pay attention to them and to act upon what it is that they bring to you. And don't take the problems that they bring to you and then decide to decorate them and put little fancy hats on them, because then you might not want to get rid of them.
Yes.
That's another Sadhguru thing, by the way.
Yeah, it is.
Don't decorate your problems.
Mm-hmm.
Deal with them at the level of attention that they require and they need. They're there for a reason, because every problem has within it or behind it a gift for you. Don't identify with that problem. Don't chastise it. Just accept. That's the key. That you have the problem, and then deal with it. First, consulting your mind, wherever it's coming from, your emotions and your body, before you go outside to consult any of these people. Psychologists, next thing you know, they want to medicate you
for years, and there's no solution.
Or do talk therapy where you talk about it, but there's no solution coming. But if you talk to yourself first as a partner, I'm not saying don't see professionals. Absolutely not saying that. I'm saying that the first and foremost step in all the solutions you have with anything that you have a question about should start with this. And then from there, you work from within, because maybe one of the answers is you need to see a professional. You need to see a mental health professional. And if you do, you need to see it. You need to go and see whoever you need to see. Otherwise, you're spiritually bypassing. You're spiritually bypassing. Meaning, you're not dealing with the issue in the way it should be dealt with, and you want to, and then you act like everything's okay. Delusional positivity about, oh, it's good. I'm doing this. I talk to the friends. I'm blah blah blah, and all of that. Denying everything that you're actually supposed to be doing. So what we want to do is start listening. And then the connection to spirit is all a part of that process of healing and taking back your role as the leader or as the CEO of your body, your emotions, and your mind. Because it's like, just take it one step further before we end it, because I know this is long. Hey, if you got a company and at the board meeting, and every time the CFO and the operations manager or operations person and all the people on the board, every time they say something, that CEO just completely ignores them. You know what they're going to do? Pretty soon they're going to stop saying stuff, or they're going to start doing things so that CEO will start recognizing that something is going on. And your body, your mind, and your emotional body are no different. You could also throw your inner child into that, all the aspects of yourself. All the aspects of yourself. And all of these things, because they also, one of the things that they want that connection to your spirit. They want that, because they know life is easier with that connection. Suddenly you're not just here to survive, i.e., be born, go to school, go to work, retire, and die. Anything can do that. This brain and this mind that you have is way too big for such a menial thing.
So powerful.
Little bug flying around outside can survive. With the intellect and intelligence and all the aspects that you have within you, that's not what you're here for. You're here to survive and then become self-actualized. That's another thing we're talking about, being the ultimate you, spiritually, physically, and mentally. All right, I think we can leave it there. Hey,
yeah, yes.
I think we can leave it there.
And Roger is available as well for motivational speaking, and that's not a joke. It is. It's part of one of the services that we do offer. So.
Exactly.
Not that anything's open right now, but we do Zoom as well. So, or if you have any questions and found any of this interesting, you have further questions, then just put them in the comments below, and we'll get back to you.
All right. Okay, so that's it for today. Hey.
And remember to like and subscribe. And hit the bell button so that you're alerted every time that we post a new video.
All right. And remember
To keep working on, working within. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.